Most of the budget was not overly surprising. I think there was an expectation that there would be inflationary increases to many charges, so that's not too much of a shock. What's more surprising is where there's been above inflation increases. For example, social insurance is the one that stands out at 5%. That's something which is not very welcome to businesses, and particularly small businesses, because it's effectively a tax on employment. In addition, we've had the increase in the corporate tax rate from 12.5 to 15%. Again, that's an additional cost to small businesses. So those parts were not so welcome.
When it comes to small businesses, it's often a matter of fine margins. Increases like those announced today could mean the difference between survival and going under. I wondered what Mr. Delgado thought about those business owners who might already have been struggling to keep their heads above water.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly the point. I mean, there are a lot of businesses, particularly those smaller ones, where you're right, they are very much often on the cusp of survival, and small charges can make a difference. Charges which haven't been planned for in particular.
So looking at measures that will affect smaller businesses far more than they will affect larger businesses, we're talking about the rates increase, the water, the electricity, and the small things that will add up bit by bit. What are your thoughts on those?
Ultimately, every charge is an additional cost, and disproportionately to smaller businesses. So whilst we would want that to reduce overall, I mean, I think we're also realistic that there has been fairly high inflation over the last couple of years. That now seems to be settling. But obviously, we'd prefer smaller increases to higher ones, and we'd prefer none at all. But I think there's a realization as well that inflation, it does exist, and sometimes charges will go up to reflect that.
And in terms of, well, when you look at the budget measures and you've seen what's been presented, is there anything that you were hoping for that hasn't been there?
We would have loved to have seen more incentives for businesses, particularly startups, and for some incentives for businesses to make more investment. I mean, I think that would have been very welcome. We would have liked to have seen some more information in the budget on efficiencies in the public sector. I mean, that's something again which many of our members would like to see, and we'd see that as part of a balanced budget. It's not just about taxation, but it's also about the other side as well, about the spending and how the money is spent.
What's your overall takeaway then from the budget? Is it all doom and gloom, or do you see something that interests you and something that you think will interest the small business owners?
It's not all doom and gloom. It's never all doom and gloom. I think there were some positive signs in there. I think there was growth in terms of GDP. There was a very small budget surplus. I think those are all positive signs. But that's at a time when there's a lot of uncertainty around. So looking to the future and putting an optimistic take on it. If we have more certainty in the future, then perhaps those positive notes will increase and grow in the future.